Hey, so this is TDG. Oh, sorry, I got and I want to talk about Garchomp. And here's what I wanted to discuss. I'm soon going to release a top 10 Pokemon in Sword and Shield video. And I feel that, as it stands, where I may have Garchomp ranked, um, may be controversial. And I kind of want to make this its own video and showcase some of Garchomp's recent performances and talk a little bit about them and how Garchomp has been used. So we'll briefly go through all of Garchomp's DCL performances as well as its most recent performance. So we'll see Panda versus Addy. Garchomp sets rocks and it dies. Now, you might be wondering, this Pokemon is 20 points. Why are we so comfortable letting it faint in the very first turn? Well, let me put it this way. What role does Garchomp fill? The answer is simple. None. Garchomp doesn't fill any roles. And because of that, we are comfortable letting it faint. For Stealth Rocks, which I guess you can call role, but it doesn't have any defensive profile at all. So it is functionally useless as a team piece. It doesn't cover anything. So that makes us comfortable sacking it turn one for Stealth Rocks. Now, this in mind, while it can do this, it's better to have something that can set up these Stealth Rocks and perform rolls. And then we can let it faint, but it also is able to cover rolls. And that is why this, it's fine, it works here. But it is not, Garchomp doing something special. And throughout this game, I'm going to skip a bunch of turns. We just play an offensive game from here on out, and this Comfy is going to end up ultimately winning the game. And this is by no means about Garchomp having a good performance. In fact, you can say that Garchomp had a very mediocre performance in this game. You can also see the rocks are no longer on the field. There was a rapid spin done on the Cinderace. Now, it did get rid of this Excadrill, but nevertheless, this is not a good performance from Garchomp. Just to set rocks up turn one and faint, that is not enough. So we'll look at the next game. Maybe this is better, right? We see another Garchomp. This is Calm Mind, it's Sleep Powder. The sleep's not going to last very long. So he's going to get big damage on Necrozma. Or she's going to get big damage on the Necrozma, my bad. Latios is a he, I guess, so whatever. I don't know. It's a bond. It's going to faint this Lati. So this time, it got to faint, but also if this is your response to Latios, that's a bit quirky. I guess it works, right? But it makes me question the team structure a little bit. That this trade was worth it, but okay, it keeps going. Leno comes out. Is it going to be able to do anything? No, obviously it forced out. Stealth Rocks come up. Knock off. Probably Helmet. No, it's lefties. U-turn comes out. We see Raikou come in. Stays in to get some screens up. Gets really low. So now this Raikou really is a threat, unless this Garchomp maybe can do something. Wolfette comes out. It's going to use Roserade, but Roserade takes a ton from Extra Sensory. Spikes go up. Now he really needs to use Garchomp. So Garchomp's going to come in right after this. And we're going to see Garchomp can really live this pretty well. But then we're going to see these embarrassing damage rolls. This just does nothing. I know there's a Reflect Up, but this is pretty low. And then we're going to see that this doesn't kill even. And he doesn't even opt to kill the Garchomp. And this is just like insult to injury. As he just sets up double screen. Well, she sets up double screens. I'm so used to saying he. And then just uses this as an opportunity to set up on the Garchomp's face with a Rapidash G. So that's frankly embarrassing, and then needs the lucky burn to not just I mean, this Bisharp was Sucker Punch in the back, right? But to be able to do this exchange, you need a Lucky Burn. It tries to use the Iron Defense, boost the advantage, but this is just going to be a steal or wrap up. Again, this Garchomp performance, um, it did damage, right? Um, I don't feel that this was incredibly impressive. The fact it got set up on by Galarian Rapidash, it got some, it fainted some Pokemon, but it just didn't seem particularly impressive here. We're gonna go to the next game. We have this on hyper fast. A lot of things happen in this game. You could say it's a good game, whatever. We see Garchomp come out. We see Toxic. Again, a lot of things could have done this. You could say it's a little more forcing. It really doesn't change the matter. It gets rocks up. So, it did two things here. But ultimately in this game, right, Garchomp is not going to do anything else through the entire game. And ultimately, Paddox is going to lose this game. It doesn't get a single point more damage. I'm just going to skip to the end. It just sets rocks up in Toxics. And then ultimately, Addison ends up winning this game. And you can see that it clicked Earthquake. It clicked out into the Land of T once. Yeah. We're going to see the next game. And you can watch the game for yourself if you use the link, as well. And this game is going to be very much the same. Garchomp's going to click rocks. It's going to start roaring. And ultimately, it's going to end up pretty similar, where Garchomp, they actually get a huge lead in this game, but Garchomp does nothing but this rocks and roar, and then they're going to lose this Latios. So, and then the next game is going to be totally better, as Garchomp's going to set up turn 1. Get down to Sash. It wants to just trade with Salamence here. It misses Stone Edge. It has inaccurate moves, and it's just going to die. It just faints. So, yeah, and then it ends up being where Jason Griff comfortably wins this game. Noticing a pattern. Garchomp's doing almost nothing every game. But let's move on. So now we see Zeraora. Maybe Garchomp has to be the check to that. It doesn't really want to be reactive, but it might have to be in this game, right? So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I'm not going to show the whole game. I don't want to waste my time. Or I'm not going to slowly get through the game, because we're really looking at Garchomp here. Now, if you think about it also, I can talk about the situations where Garchomp, not being able to do something forces something into a worse role or something like that. But, I've watched through the previous 5 games, and I'm actually re-recording this, and there's nothing, too extreme in that front. So, yeah. Where Garchomp just, drastically underperforms in a certain way. So now, yeah, Garchomp has to be used to block Zeraora. So it's being used reactively here. And, it does get this free turn. And it's just going to use it to Stealth Rock because, what else are you going to do, I guess, right? I don't know why, because, Garchomp had a good defensive matchup once this Bronzong went down. So, no, it just went for rocks again. This, I think, is a little bit of user error. But also, I don't know how much I don't know if I call it user error on just one front. And then Garchomp comes in, one shots. Again, really any ground type could have done this. But yeah, Zeraora's gonna come back in. Quick Plasma Fist, hard to go Garchomp hard, I guess. Just want to get some damage. Now I'm gonna go Garchomp on this turn, kind of the wrong turn to do it. As you're gonna see this play rough. It doesn't kill. Gonna click Roar. Really weird here. We're going to see Zera come right back in. Quick Plasma Fist does quite a bit. Sludge not going to knock it out. And all of a sudden, having a Garchomp is annoying again because it is not able to handle the Zeraora. So now, Slowking has to come back in, take more damage, but this time it gets crit. So right now, this being a Garchomp and not able to handle Zeraora well, has genuinely lost 2 Pokemon for Palkia. So now he's also in a situation where he has to sack a bunch of health on a different Pokemon. So Thundurus comes out and takes a bunch of damage, and this Thundurus now has to click Superpower, apparently. Oh, lets Krook come in, and Krook just clicks Knockoff and does quite a bit to this Param. And all of a sudden, you're down a bunch of Pokemon. You don't have a ton of defensive checks. And we're going to see this Finny beat this Prim. The Prim goes down. So now, this is actually, Garchomp existing got rid of a whole Pokemon, essentially, because of the crit. Obviously, that's, unlucky, but also, it's a big deal here in this endgame. And then we're going to see, although I don't know how useful this Slowking would have been, per se, but also, having, maybe you could have had an Intim cycle on, if this was, a Lando, right? If this was a Lando T, you could have Intim cycled once, and that would help a lot, to some extent, versus, this, where I'm not sure that a +0 Ironhead would have beat this. So, yeah, Dawn Mitz ends up winning this game. You heard that right. Dawn Mitz ends up winning this game. So again, I think that this being a Garchomp in this scenario where Garchomp had to be the reactive piece to Zeraora cost this game. And as we keep going, we're going to see another game. So first turn, really, really bad for Nim here. Gets a bunch of damage on Sylveon. Cool, right? Obviously this team didn't have amazing leave off switch ins either, but still. So now we see Keldeo take the Surging Strikes. Normal stuff here. Whimsicott's going to come in on a flip turn. Probably, yeah. Mercy Light Screen come up. Takes a ton of damage still. Maybe this is Specs or something. We're going to see Uxie. Uxie sets up a plot. Defog comes out. We're going to see big damage. From there, Whimsicott's going to come back, set up a light screen. Memento. Lando's going to come out. And what's Garchomp going to do? Miss an Aqua Tail. And the game is over. That Aqua Tail wouldn't have killed, but it definitely changed the game, I think. But either way, extremely bad run for Garchomp. Now, in the most recent game, we'll see what happens. Turn 1. Need I say more? Do I really need to keep talking? And guess what? Now look at Zeraora. Just look, they don't have a ground type anymore. Obviously you could say this was a poor decision making, and I agree with that. But let's actually talk about this. Garchomp has problems. And we need to address these. And we also I need to address these so that people understand the reality. Let's start with, where do I start? Zeraora. Being forced oftentimes to respond to a Pokemon that you're not that good at responding to, not only is that a defensive weakness, but it also limits the capability of Garchomp to actually be productive. Um, so it's one thing to make you defensively weaker to Zerora, um, but it's a whole other thing to get rid of one of your key luxury offensive pieces entirely and have to dedicate it to the other player's offensive piece. So by that I mean I really think that Garchomp struggles in more than one way into that matchup. Not that I think the matchup is unplayable or that it even necessarily is always going to be bad. I mean, that very much depends on the team. I just think that you're not going to see Garchomp be able to perform at maybe its highest potential in that matchup. Um, then we have the Coco matchup, and you know, a lot of Garchomps were benched this season of DCL, and it was brought 7 times, and there's 21 opportunities for it to be brought. Um, versus a Tapu Koko, right? If this is your ground type to respond to a Tapu Koko, obviously that's some sort of defensive problem, right? Um, so much so that you might even maintain that you want to keep Garchomp as your offensive piece and kind of let Tapu Koko pivot around a bit. In some ways, um, you have to make some decisions, and you have to make some decisions team structure wise. You know, do I want to try to get a copium check to Coco, and potentially have a weaker roster, or you know, do I just want to get a stronger roster? And typically, you just want to get a stronger roster. That's usually going to work out better for you. Um, but it does leave a lot open in those matchups to not be very good. And I also think that Tank Chomp is just bad value. Um, for a 20-point Pokemon, it is terrible value. You are not getting what you paid for. Uh, it, you know, you might force a lot of prep, but you're just not getting what you paid for. If you're running Toxic Chomp, Rocks like Helmet, Rocks Roar, all that stuff, you're not getting 20 points of value. And that's blatantly obvious. That especially when you're not filling roles, which is something that I talked about in the first game. That it's okay to sack a Garchomp because it doesn't fill roles, and you see this again where we're comfortable Swords Dancing on a Fable at the very first turn of the game. Um, so the typing's abysmal. The typing is horrible. The typing has like 4 resists or something, and like one of them's fire. And if you don't know, it needs investment to not get 2-shot by a Blacephalon with Fire Blast. Um, it, and fire is not that common. One of them is poison, which we all know is the most relevant typing ever. And one of them is rock. So, it can totally take a meteor beam into a different hit from like Celesteela. It actually is not that bad at that. But, it's not great. And I already talked about it sabotages the team into some of these top electrics. Now, there are other problems, and, what happened in some of these games, right? It was missing moves. It was missing Stone Edges. It was missing Aqua Tails. Well, okay. A lot of its moves are really inconsistent. Aqua Tails, it's not super bad, right? But it's not great. Stone Edge, not great. Scale Shot. Now, people don't want to say it, but Scale Shot is terrible in terms of consistency, right? Not only is it a multi-hit move in a gen with outloaded dice, right? So this will be a 50 base power move, like a third of the time or something like that. But also it's not even accurate. It's like a 90% accurate move. So this is like a terrible, like inconsistent option, right? And if you're using it as one of your own slots, you're in trouble. And maybe if you fit it with like a Stila, which is a pretty common partner, you're gonna lack rockers. You're just not gonna have very many rockers. Um, if you don't fit it with a Stila, you fit it with an Aegislash. You're gonna lack rockers. You fit it with a Melmetal, you're gonna lack rockers. And if you try to get a good Pokemon that is a rocker, oh, I want to fit a Necrozma on the team. Well, guess what you just did? You just got two luxury mons that fill no roles at all. And those are your first two Pokemon you're starting with. And we saw the Necrozma team. There was one team that had a Necrozma. Um, where is it? This one. This team's horrible. This team is terrible. Um, you have two Pokemon that just don't fill any roles. And guess what? Raikou doesn't fill very many roles either. So this team just doesn't have role fills, and that's why you're seeing like Latios check being a Garchomp. And, like, it's just not good. And it's also difficult to position a Garchomp sometimes where Skull Shroud is an easy click and it gets a kill or it gets you um momentum. Um so on top of that being reactive, right? And we're also looking at like with all this being said, like Garchomp's good in the torn matchup. But how many Garchomp sweeps with Skellshot and Swords Dance have you actually seen that weren't a skill issue on the part of the person being swept? Ask yourself that. And how long ago were those sweeps? Now, here's a reality. DPL season 9, 100p used a Garchomp team, and he did very well with the Garchomp team. Um, so it's not that long ago that a team that had a Garchomp on it had a strong performance at a team tour. So that being said, it is 100p. So, we should take that with a grain of salt, right? Because we're looking at somebody that is possibly the best player in the generation. Um, so let's actually look at some of these games. And because you know what? Maybe I need to rewatch these games. I'm gonna rewatch these games just to not to prove myself right, right? I'm doing this right now. I haven't done it yet. I haven't rewatched these games. But let's just see. Does it make sense to say that this was a good Garchomp performance? Right? So we're looking at this team right here. Let's look from 100 perspective. Okay. So we're going to see Zapdos lead into Mew. It's not going to respect like Meteor Beam or Policy. Interesting choice. I guess the team comp doesn't allow it. He probably supposes. We're going to see Rapid Spin. Volt Switch comes out on the Mew. So the Mew still accomplishes a decent trade, I think. We're going to see the Scizor take a knockoff here. It's going to reveal to be Helmet Scizor. And it's going to boost. So not getting a ton of progress here is Ethan. But this helmet will help rack up damage. We see rocks come up here as Garchomp now goes for a Draco. Doesn't do too much damage here, and it is first out. So really, it just gives Mew like kind of free entry, but this Mew doesn't heal. So kind of an okay trade, right, from 100. We see Lariat come out, does a decent chunk to this Rillaboom, and Garchomp's going to come back and hit the field, take a knockoff. Gonna reveal to be Helmet, getting some damage on this Rillaboom. And then Rocks are gonna come up. So far, this is like actually decent, right? But also, you know, it set Rocks on like a Rillaboom. The Rillaboom could have been something to help get more progress. Um, this is really about a little bit about passivity here on this end. Uh, I think slightly. But also, you got to consider, you got to cover a bunch of stuff. But yeah, this is so far fine. Like, hmm. This is definitely a better performance than the others from 100 here. Um, it's kind of hard to judge in a way because he makes some like pretty hard calls here. And I just don't know the matchup. I don't remember the matchup that well. We're going to see that. Okay. Nozzle. Okay. It's pretty bulky there. That's like, I think it's really bulky Sizz. Oh, interesting. Yeah, hmm. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I think Garchomp did more there. But it's like a funky set. It could have been shut down if this Mew was more like of a Spadef wall, I want to say. This could have been like toxic, but then it would have to take a toxic itself, kind of weaken itself a little bit. Could have kept Rillaboom a little more healthy. Like this is like a fine performance, honestly. Um, I don't want to talk about Addy Bryan. That's just like that's tough player wise. 100 didn't even use Garchomp this week. Instead, it's Jimmy G. So I think we know what we can expect here, right? I mean, we saw the result already. Um, but Rock's blocked here. We're gonna see Grimstar goes out. V-Crate does a ton of Starmie, Thunderbolt. Zero matchups I think are just annoying for Chomp. Although this does have like a second round, so it's not completely fucked, I guess. All right, so Chomp's wait, let me go back. Chomp knocked out this. Um, wasn't very useful, to be quite honest. You're gonna see Palossand kind of lets in Prim. Having two grounds, it's kind of difficult to answer this. Um, yeah, this is not great. Like, there's just not a lot here to answer. Um, there's just nothing. Even Corv like is getting tricky to break. There's just not a lot of like options here. Because it's bringing two grounds here. Yeah, and then Here, let's see what happens. Just Prim SD, right? So it's like he made a good play there. We see Fire Fang come out. We see Iron Defense come out. This is lefties, right? So he won't break. Um, so ultimately, Chomp doesn't make any progress here. This is a lot worse, right, for the Garchomp. And then this is a problem where having to bring these two to try to like make Chomp actually be able to do something. Because I'm assuming it's right because it's you don't want to get overwhelmed by like Zera on this and not be able to have Chomp be offensive at all, right? And we're actually going to see the Zera hard come out to face the Chomp, and this is an interesting play, especially if you're covering skill shot. And we'll just see an attack here. It's a crit, doesn't really matter. We see an attack drop, which is annoying. But the crit, I don't think it'll matter because I don't think it'll kill. Yeah. But it might put it in range of other stuff. But, if it's skill shotting anyway, it probably would have been in range of other stuff anyway. Because it would have got the -1 defense. No, never mind. I forgot. This is Scarf. This is over probably. Going in first is yeah, you have to be Colbur. Oh, I remember this. This is like, oh, Jimmy G got lucked here or something. He says, but the defense drop is gonna come or something. No, actually, it doesn't. It didn't. There's a crit though. The crit mattered, he said, but this is like he deserved it, right? He's more likely to get the defense drop than not. So we're gonna see this. So yeah, this one I would blame on Garchomp just probably forcing this issue of these two to come. So that is a Garchomp issue. Obviously, well, let's see 100p versus Scrappy. I remember this game being really bad. Let me just rewatch this. Oh yeah, it just sacks the DNC for no reason. Nothing to do with Chomp yet. This is full para here. This is already like really, really good for 100 before Chomp even hits the field. I don't even think it's that great of a Chomp matchup. I also don't understand this prep from Scrappy. I'm assuming like his team workshopped it with him. So I mean it's not to completely blame Scrappy here, but ZFG, what are you doing? I don't understand this cook. So now Nihilego is going to come in here. This thing just doesn't have moves for Nihilego either. It's just like Shadow Ball. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't think it can just sub. Like, yeah, exactly. And then it cooks Toxic because it just doesn't understand, right? Or the set just doesn't understand. Like, Nihilego can hit this. This is a like play to try to catch something because this is like a totally winning exchange. I don't like Scrappy staying in, which is interesting. I understand the Sledge Bomb; it does make sense to me. Zooch, honestly, like Turbo annoys me. Like I'm sorry, Zooch, if you're watching this. Like your chat presence annoys annoys me. It definitely gets under my skin. But yeah, it is what it is. Then Lego's just gonna start owning things. I mean, I don't mind Zooch as a guy, but in the chat, oh my god, that guy annoys me for sure. I'm assuming this is like Meteor Beam, yeah, and so he was just not prepared for this, and then this crit, I don't know if it mattered. It probably didn't, but yeah, we're gonna see this U-turn. If this spins right, the game is just over. It doesn't. It just Side Shocks. But yeah, this just doesn't have anything to do with Garchomp. This game is just like 100p skill deafing his opponent, and yeah, Garchomp's just like not even gonna hit the field. Like I don't really have anything to say about Garchomp in that game. Like it's just not. It has nothing to do with Garchomp, and this is a game that 100p should have lost versus Glop. I remember that. No, I don't remember how much Garchomp did, but we're just see it lead off here against the Swampert. It's going to click rocks. And guess what? If the Swampert had Ice Punch, this Garchomp probably would have taken possibly even 100%, depending on the Swampert's item. So again, this is another case of, I have a Garchomp, I'm just going to try to sack it turn one because it's useless. But, Glop says, no, I'm not going to allow that because I don't want to prep a move like that on my Swampert. So let me see this defog, and we're back in now a position where, the Garchomp has done something, sort of. And we go Bikini here and force out the Garchomp, which is quite interesting. And then just start nuking the Zapdos, which is static, so you eventually can fish for a burn here. But Glop doesn't choose to fish for a burn, which probably would be a decent play. Instead, decides to take a Toxic on a Swampert. I don't know if I agree with that, but okay, you do you. Now Garchomp comes back in on flip. Tini comes out. Rocks, again, pretty similar to other things. I mean, I'm not saying rocks aren't valuable here, or that Garchomp didn't do that much because it did get damage on Corvi, but realistically, like any top tier ground probably could have done pretty similar things if not respected by Swampert. Like if like Lando T was here and Swampert didn't pack Ice Beam or Ice Punch, sure, this game could have gone the exact same way. You could have got a bunch of chip on core. I mean, to be fair, it would have fogged, right? But you can get them up later. It kind of works the same way, right? It doesn't really. This isn't spectacular or anything, and yeah, okay. So now that Garchomp's gone, we'll see how impactful these rocks are, right? So it gets some damage on Coco, or gets some damage on Swampert, right? Now Hurricane misses. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense to me. Um, I do remember this game quite a bit. Um, so the rocks don't matter there. The rocks don't. Oh, I mean, this Coco gets kind of low, right? Misses Hydro, hits a Hydro, just doesn't KO. Miss a Hydro, doesn't. No, that means the rocks don't matter again. Yeah, because it would have mattered there because this thing gets two rocks, right? This Victini is probably taking like 50 from rocks. But with that play, again, like it doesn't really matter. So, like, okay. Um, Ernst Coco's taking a ton. Now, it might have mattered here in a way, just stopping him from like choking, but you just wild charge twice, right? Well, actually, no. You volt, and then the play was to volt on the turn 30. I think that was right. So yeah, I mean, like the rocks kind of matter, I think, because it recoil, right? But like also, like I just don't think this is like that spectacular. I don't know. It's just not that impressive to me. Like it's fine, right? Like this is like these are fine performances, but I'm expecting better performances out of 100, like because he's 100 and he's like one of the best players of the format, right? So of course he can make a Garchomp work, like well, but like does this look like it's some unstoppable monster to you? Like, yeah, it got progress. It did good things, right? But like, this is like its good season, and I'm not talking about like the team. Like the team works, right? And 100 clearly like a good player. This is not a fraudulent run. Um, but again, like you can see that this is another case like that. This Garchomp it just sets up rocks and faints. And that's really all that 100 needed it to do, right? So, you know, it's just a matter of like what's Garchomp's role on this team. Like, is 100 winning with because of Garchomp, or is 100 well partially right, but is Garchomp the number one player on this team? And that's where I say I don't really think so. And we'll keep watching, right? And I remember this game very well. We'll see that this time the Payu sense it's rocks. You know, having two grounds against these like electric matchups, right? Is pretty nice. This Silvally I'm just gonna skip. It does no damage, and it doesn't even get its balloon popped. So now, Latios, you know, is gonna switch, go Melm. This Melm, you know, is just not gonna do very much. Um, and it's gonna faint to the Garchomp. You know, you had a fearsome stuff here. You had a Scarf Laddie. This is just gonna toxic. I mean, this is like it was kind of crashing down to begin with. Um, but yeah, this card jump's gonna do something here. But again, this is like I don't know how impressed I am. And then you know because like it was already crashing down, and there's a couple things here that were just not meaningful, right? Like Garchomp was a good force in that position, like a little bit better. But also, like if you had any ground type, like let's say you had a Lando, and the Lando called the Laddie coming out. Yeah, the Lando also wins this game. It didn't have to be Garchomp, right? This is just like a bad team. And so now, yeah, we get in these exchanges here. Olivia's just gonna end up losing this game like comfortably. But yeah, like if we go back, right, you could say, oh, Garchomp got a great position in this game, and you're right, it did. Um, but this is just like a poorly constructed team, and therefore, like if I had a Lando in the exact same position, it's still a very very favorable position for Lando T. It's still a very favorable position for a Lando I. This is just straight up a favorable position for any ground type in the history of time that is worth any salt. So, like I'm a D1 hater right now, but I'm not lying to you. I'm not telling you something that isn't true. This is just a super favorable position for any top tier ground type. Even like a Nidoking, right? Nothing switches an Earth Power. Let's say you have Sucker Punch, an Ice Beam, right? It's tricky to get Latios in. Um, and you kind of beat the rest of the team. So no matter what this ground type is, this is always favorable. So yeah, like good performance, sure, it did something, but the underlying reasons that it did accomplish those things, you're not really thinking about those in the way that you should, right? In this scenario, and now we're gonna see Jimmy G against Sablo. I don't know. That's actually Ors. I just misclicked there. Um, I trolled. Now Jimmy G plays Genius with this Garchomp team. And let's see how that looks. So here we see Blissey versus Zapdos. Um, like this is Garchomp performing like fairly well, right? Like obviously, like there are some of these games where, like the first game against Ethan, I think the Garchomp actually did things that other things might struggle a little bit to do. It was a little bit harder to place in that role. Um, at least to some degree, right? Um, but also like I'm just not, I didn't think it was something that wowed me, right? And this was one of the best performances I've shown you. Um, And I'm not like skipping games. I showed you every single Chomp game from DCL. I'm showing you all the Chomp performances from the best performing Chomp team in recent history. And right now Chomp hasn't hit the field yet. Um, but you look down the field, Chomp looks fine, right? Chomp looks fine. So it comes in on the Cinder, it takes a U-turn. So it reveals to be Tank Chomp. I think Tank Chomp is bad value. Um, but we'll see. Maybe it can do something, right? I mean, we saw the result of the game, but and we'll see. Jimmy actually goes up in this game, and Tank Chomp is going to get some more damage, right? Because it's probably going to U-turn. It's just will this get it into Cinder range? Probably not. It seems to be a bulky Cinder, right? Bulky Scissor. We'll see this Keldeo. It's probably gonna be like, yeah, it's good damage. It's Life Orb, right? This can maybe blow up, but decides to recover. Okay. Now Scissor's gonna come out. Now, if you sack the Scissor, um, then it doesn't really matter how low the Cinder gets. Okay, so now the Cinder is probably gonna Pyro, right? And there's a Future Sight hitting back, so this is going to be gone. So it's also in Blaze range. This Garchomp's gonna come out. There's gonna be a taunt here. Makes a lot of sense. Keep this thing around. Um, so this thing really just hasn't done much except for like maybe get a bit of damage on the Cinder. Cinder's gonna be sacked. Um, so the damage probably mattered there in keeping the thing alive. So I got rid of the Cinder with that. With rough skin, right? Um, you could say that may have been useful, right? Like, but I mean, was it top tier again? I don't really think so. I don't think you can call that's something that is worthy of 20 points. You see, it's a whole different discussion. And I'm not saying he's bad. Again, I have him in my top 10. I'm just saying, you look at what some of the other mons around are doing, and you compare them a little bit, right? Is this equal, or is this better, you know, or worse? That's one of them, right? It's equal, it's better, or it's worse. Um, and I'm also, obviously, I can't just consider the individual performance, but I actually think that these Trump teams are not that easy to construct effectively because it's a luxury mod. Um, so I actually think Garchomp performs pretty bad on the front when you're not looking individually. Like, um, so with that in mind, right, it might have like some upside in specific matchups, but all right. I'm gonna get into some spoiler territories for the top 10. But here's the question with Garchomp, right? If we want to look at the other ground types, and I namely want to talk about Orlando T in the round one conversation, Orlando I, which is bordering round one and round two and three right now, at least for now, and Nido King round three or four maybe, um, when we're looking at those Pokemon, that subset, are we expecting more on an average game to game basis out of Garchomp individually, or Orlando T, or Orlando I, or Nidoking? And then we'll take it a step further. For the Pokemon that are better in defensive roles, are they improving upon the capability of teammates? So, for example, right, if I want to try to check Cinderace, maybe, if I want to keep Garchomp from being a defensive set, or actually, well, we need the Garchomp to be a defensive set, right? To check Cinderace in this game. So this isn't a good example, but when Garchomp is offensive, it's sometimes going to take away the teammates because some other stuff will have to be defensive. So maybe I'll need a defensive Gyarados, right, to run an offensive Garchomp, and that's not necessarily a great trade-off. Where if you had a more defensive ground type, maybe you had a Lando T, maybe you can comfortably run a defensive Lando T, which performs better, in my opinion, in defensive roles than a defensive Garchomp most of the time. Yeah, then we're looking at a whole different scenario, basically, is what I'm getting at. But, being able to sub out for defensive role better is important, and being able to open up your teammates to do things. But then you also look individually, right? And, when you look at performances individually, and Garchomp's throughout the last couple of years, with Garchomp, I'm not super impressed by the individual performances, and I don't see a good defensive profile. I don't. I don't see a good role profile. And obviously I see a lot of prep constraint. So that is something, to keep in mind. I think that's important. Where I think like Lando T doesn't force as much prep, for example. The way I'm kind of looking at it, right? You can maybe even see where I would have it below some of these ground types, because um it these individual performances, they just aren't up to a higher standard right now. And this is even true when you're looking at these higher level games, right? Even when 100p is the pilot, maybe Garchomp's making a lot of progress, but it's not doing it in situations where Garchomp would be distinctly better than others. Okay, so this isn't like a special thing exclusive to Garchomp. This is just a very good position that was converted. And it should have been converted, right? And that's an idea, right? Not a Garchomp Masterclass. Converting a position that a ground type of any high caliber should convert. And maybe you can say the stakes are higher. Because with Garchomp, if I scale shot into the Latios, the game is over. And that's probably somewhat fair. But I would say in this position with these 6 here, if I knock off with a Land of T into that Latios, the game is over as well. But essentially. Now it's more over with the Garchomp. But, at this point we're debating the state of over. So who really cares? Right? Like that's just ridiculous at that point. So yeah, this is the main idea I want to convey. And I'm gonna dig into something real quick, because I don't think Lando T is the best comparison to Garchomp. I think the best comparison is Lando Eye. And when I'm trying to say like a closer gap in terms of skill level. Um and I'm not going to spell who's higher, but I'm going to tell you they're very close in my eyes where they belong. Because if you look at Garchomp's defensive profile, as I said, it's terrible. Lando Eyes isn't, I mean, it's not great, but it's not that bad. Um, it's not terrible. It's okay. Um, so its ability to instantly break from Lando Eye, in some cases better. Um, in some cases trickier, where you get punished more for maybe making a wrong play. Like a Garchomp, if it makes a wrong play, a lot of the times it's like, okay, so I don't get rewarded, but maybe I don't lose that much progress. But with Lando Eye, it's more, okay, I made a wrong play. Now I might get like completely out of position. So that's a bad thing with Lando Eye, right? And with Lando Eye, sometimes maybe you also have to rely on some inaccurate moves, like, oh, I'm gonna have to hit a focus blast. Garchomp has skill shot and Stone Edge and Aqua Tail and lots of moves that are problems. In terms of like consistency, Lando has some of that too. So, couple problems. And while its profile is better, it's not elite. Um, but it has more tools. It has knockoff. It has U-turn. It's a better rocker, better lead, better at rocking, and then maybe actually getting something after. It can trade, it can explode, right? So there are benefits, and if you're looking at the way that these Garchomps are being played, if you want a rocks lead that is reliable, I think Lando Eye is a little bit better in that role. So with that in mind, there are definitely some clear advantages to Lando Eye. There also has been recent individual performances from Lando Eye that have actually stood out. In some cases, you know, there was one of the Garchomp games that we watched where Lando Eye pulled off a sweep. Um, Lando Eye has had a couple strong individual performances. So, when you're looking down that road, I wouldn't say, now the list isn't final, but I would say don't be shocked if Lando Eye does appear higher than Garchomp. Um, and maybe within the top 10. Now, with that being said, that might sound crazy. Lando Eye is not a round one Pokemon. But I'm just looking at the profiles of these Pokemon and what they bring to the table, and I'm trying to assess that. So I'm not going to just go with status quo. I'm not going to just go with what is being picked. Now, that being said, there are some things obviously I very much like and think are very strong that won't be making these top 10, right? When I make this. Um, like if I'm being honest with myself, right? Well, I do think Blastoise is a very strong Pokemon. It's probably not top 10. Um, you know, it has a couple problems. Uh, the roll fill, right, is not. I mean, it fills rolls. But it doesn't want to fill the roles it fills. And there are things that are very annoying to it in terms of stopping it from setting up, and some things completely kind of shut down sets. Some of them not super common, but they still show up at times. There's a couple. flaws to Blastoise. Um, Getting opportunities can be tricky, especially on some of these stallier teams. The stallier teams now, they kind of spam status. A lot of them have Encore. There's a whole archetype that's just really annoying to Blastoise. Basically, any team that Theodore Mana uses, it is just not useful against. Um, there's a lot of problems with Blastoise into a couple different archetypes, and if you have problems into archetypes like where like you almost can't function as you want to function, um, that should hold you back. And honestly, Garchomp is one of those Pokemon. As weird as that sounds, Garchomp is one that consistently has some struggles into numerous archetypes. Um, and with that in mind, the more I think about it, because my list isn't final. I don't know if I even want to guarantee you that Garchomp will make the list. I think right now I would have it there, right? But you know, when I really think about this, because I'm very low on Garchomp right now, Garchomp has significant enough flaws where I don't really know if it's around one Pokemon. Um, and I'm not trying to exaggerate there because some people still think it's the best Pokemon, and maybe it will come as a surprise to hear this. I don't know if this is round one. Honestly, I think that it has too many flaws. Like like obviously it doesn't make like these Coco Zera matchups and stuff unplayable. Like that's obviously false information. Um its weaknesses aren't like completely debilitating. I just think that the main problem I have in a way is the exaggeration of its strengths and the ability to complement it. Um, and you know, having the ability to run stealth rocks is important. And these Garchomp teams, when they want to have a functional steel type, um, most good steel types in Sword and Shield don't get stealth rocks. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So if you've noticed in a lot of these games, that's the role that Garchomp has been taking. And then we see different archetypes, like in this Sword and Shield Champions, where they got a Mesprit with Garchomp. And I actually think that's maybe smart, right? Because, well, now you actually have a rocker to put on that team, but also it's like hard to like the double ground thing is kind of cool as well. Um, if I go to Sword and Shield Champions doc, I'm gonna go to the drafts tab. I want to show you this team right here with the Mesprit. Now it does kind of like struggle in like maybe utility a little bit just because like Mesprit's like kind of your utility bot and your rocker. But yeah, and let's even go a little bit further. Um, we can watch some of these games. I think this game actually had like some good stuff from Garchomp, if I remember right. Um, so this is crazy. But Nathan also was a sub in this game, so and he was abandoned. Basically, he was like Theodore Manny like subbed out on in this game, and it's just kind of sad. Like I think I remember this game might have been really long, but yeah, like I just don't know how to feel about this. Like it's just like these sub games. Like I just almost don't count them. It's just so hard to do that. And this is just like annoying. Like this Zapdos versus Dance exchange is like Zapdos is just great. Um, it's one of those mons that I've been thinking about. Like, is it cusp of top 10? But it's close. If it's not top 10, it will be an honorable mention. Um, I'm not gonna say whether it is or not. But yeah, I mean, it's just a super slow game. It's just gonna get aerialized. I mean, it's just gonna be a slow win for Vinny. I mean, it's just gonna be Zapdos, right? Mostly, yeah. I mean, Garchomp was fine. It got rid of the Buzzhole. I'm not gonna talk about this. The Garchomp didn't do much. I just had a really bad team. The team I have there isn't the team I actually had. I had like an unusable team. We FA'd the crap out of that. Um, so yeah, and then these two Garchomp games, both losses here. And I can open my game too, but honestly, I just had no time for it either. Like it was bad team, no time. I got destroyed. Um, let's open them all. We'll just look through them. I just want to show you what I mean because if you don't see it, you won't get it. No, like some of these performances are good, but like of course, every Pokemon's gonna have a good performance every once in a while. Like, and it's not that common, right? Like we've seen a lot of these Garchomp performances, and a lot of them aren't that good. It's been almost an hour. I'm just gonna go through all of these though. People can watch what they want to watch. I don't think anyone's gonna watch me for an hour. I'm not that interesting, I guess. If anyone does, good on them, I guess. If you're just really interested. But yeah, just didn't have a switch into this. Wait, Pyro wins this game, right? Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Oh, crit. That's annoying for him. He's done now. He's gone to rocks and be out of socket. She's not gonna get his rocks up. Oh, that sucks. Look at me, Garchomp. Okay. You gotta hit your scale shot. If you go for scale shot, let's see. Yeah, you go for scale shot, Coco comes out. Okay. And now you switch. You don't trade. Okay. Guess it could be Shuka, right? Guzzlord's gonna go down now. Well, no. It lives. Um, Scale shot hits. We see speed, but it's also minus defense. Um, and it switches because it's probably pretty low now. But my defense drop probably goes down. The crit, I don't think the critty matters. I'm not going to lie with a life or Wake and Rock. I don't think it matters. I know, like, oh, my dad. I don't think this matters. I think it's gone. um, there's the berry. Yeah, it's just too much damage, and it's gonna what skill shot. It's probably not even gonna knock it out. Yeah, and is it even gonna live? So oh, okay, yeah, because it didn't knock out Lando, and then you just lose to. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It doesn't do enough. It doesn't do enough. Didn't do very much, honestly. Like in theory, could have done more, right? But just didn't do anything. And now, yep, we're gonna see Coco win. Terrible. Another like Chomp just didn't do very much. All right, let's watch my game. This is terrible. I just like look at this team. This team is terrible. Like, this is garbage. Like, it's bad at everything. The defense is horrible. The offense is bad. Like, this is just terrible, man. And I'm also like, I just lose to this Pokemon. Like, it's all this is an Egg slash Masterclass. Like, he destroys me with this. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm just get owned by Wreck It Mike, Egg Slash. Like, this is not the problem. Like, but my team is terrible. So like, this is probably gonna get a knockout here. I forget. Yeah, I go with this on the Fire Blast. Let's see what happens now. Rotom Wash comes out. Yippee! I definitely get owned. There's like one moment in the game. It's like any bit interesting. I love the Hydra. I viewed for that, and now Raindance. Imagine if I earthquake there. Now I send out Ludicolo. This is like my only chance to win the game. This is nothing. This just has nothing at all to do with Garchomp. It's just now I've lost like all my Pokemon to Aegislash. He just sets rocks up again. Not impressive. Like yeah, like this is. I mean, it gets the knockout, but like this is like so over. Like this just doesn't. It has nothing to do with Garchomp. Again, this is just my team being terrible. Like it's the same thing with the Olivia thing, right? Like anything could have done that. So we'll see Nim again. This time instead of with the Land of I, he is with a Garchomp. Now let's see, can Garchomp beat a Torn T team, which usually it's pretty good at too. Why? I wonder why Garchomp always has these kind of crappy speed uh, options. I don't know. It's interesting. Well, not always, but quite often. Quite often. The 100 team had pretty good speed options, but well, a lot of these teams seem to not have that, which is curious. But there's a lot to keep in mind. Oh, Garchomp's at the field. Let's see what it does. Oh, is it going to aerial ace the Buzzhole again? Oh, it's Life Orb. Oh, it's Fire Blasting. Oh, it doesn't knock it out, huh? Okay, so it traded for almost all of a Buzzhole. Pretty good. Keeping a sack, though. Yeah, oh, I just, man, and then it's gonna lose. Just have no roll fill. Like it's just terrible. I have to be honest, right? Um, I don't have to, but I'm being honest. I just don't see it. Um, I don't see it. And then okay, well we have well, I guess I didn't link that game. This game right here, how to just 6-0 them like with ease. Um, I don't remember Power versus Quinn. Um, I'm gonna pull it up on my phone. I'm not gonna bother pulling it up for you. the viewer. Oh, I'm gonna pull it up on my phone, just see what happened again. Pyro versus oh yeah, Quinn subbed out for LeJohn. Um, let's see, what did Garchomp do? Did Garchomp have a master class, maybe? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Alright. So it broke a Metagross sub, Swords Danced, got forced out, fainted a 4% Mudsdale, got forced out again, got forced out again into a sack, and then got brought out again, dodged a toxic, scale shot, knocked something out, got a Custat Berry, got fainted after getting some chip. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't think I don't think I see anything great. I just don't see what we're talking about here with this being like a top tier, like one of the best Pokemon ever, like whatever. I just don't see it. Not that like all the top tiers always need to have a great performance, but like if you're not gonna have a great performance, right? At least fill some roles, like do something, like cover something for other teammates on a consistent basis. But you know, it is what it is. People can believe it. People can believe whatever they want to believe. Uh, Peace out. That's the video.